Kylie,
Yes. Hi, Mark.
what's the one piece of advice you would give to someone who is looking to build an investment property portfolio?
Wow, that's a big question.
Big question.
So someone just starting out?
Starting out.
The one piece of advice, probably to really go and see a mortgage broker, speak to someone about what you could do in terms of your borrowing capacity and a strategy potentially, and then speak to a buyer's agent. Because I think with most people, you don't have the time or the expertise to go out and try and find a property and negotiate on that property and work out if it's going to be financially, it's going to give you the cash flow and all of these other things.
Yeah.
So it's more about putting some experts on your side.
Yeah. And I think being vulnerable enough to ask for that help is at the core of that.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately there's a lot of people out there, especially the barbecue conversation, and they make it seem really, really easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are really scared to make that jump and ask that question.
Yeah.
And yes, the barbecue conversation. We love a barbecue conversation.
Yeah.
But I think until you actually speak to someone about your own individual situation and what you're trying to achieve, whether it's getting into the property market to find something to live in, or the first home, or I don't know, your first steps to buying an investment property, until you have some really good people on your side, you will never ever make that decision.
Yeah.
You will have a lot of barbecue conversations.
And it becomes a classic case of that analysis paralysis, right?
1,000%. Yeah. There's too much information. I mean, social media and everything else, you get overloaded with information and I'm 25 and I've purchased 8 properties and this is how I did it. And it's like, how did you do it?
Yeah. I think if you scratch the surface of some of those anecdotes as well, I think you'd realise that maybe it's not all what it's sort of pictured to be as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think there's always, I always look at those sort of stories. I think one of my favourite Mark Twain quotes is, comparison is the thief of joy, right? If you're always looking outwardly and going, oh, I feel like I'm left behind, I think you're not focusing on the right thing, which is let's speak to people who know what they're doing. Let's get that expert advice and let me get on that right path.
And what can I do?
Yeah,
with what, like my income and my savings or whatever it is, but just to try not to listen to everything else and then just zero in on, okay, well, you tell me what I can do and get some really good people on your side who can then give you the correct advice.
Yeah, for sure.
And a strategy as well.
Totally.
Because that's the other thing.
Yeah. So that's for someone who wants to start an investment property portfolio. As someone that works very closely with people that have built multi-property portfolios, what do you see in them that sets them apart? So I'm talking some clients that I know you've worked with, 5, 10 properties. Like, these are big numbers and they seem to have a real appetite for it. What sets them apart?
I think with everything in life, you have to have a little bit of appetite for risk.
Yes.
Because starting your own business, buying your first investment property, building a portfolio, there's risk.
Yeah.
Even dabbling in the share market, there's risk involved. So I think there's a little bit of having a little bit of risk in you to be like, okay, well, I want to, I don't know, retire early, or I want to have some passive income that's going to allow me to retire early and live off my investments. But what does that look like and how am I going to achieve that? And I do have to take that risk to do those things.
Yeah. And you know what I think what really highlighted there from what you're saying is you have to know yourself, because if you want to be someone that builds a multi-property portfolio but you have no appetite for risk, it is not for you.
No, not at all. I think you'll get scared by going to non-bank lenders and interest rate rises potentially, or decrease, or whatever it's happening in the market at that time. I think if your appetite is not there, then it's probably not for you. But until you understand what you could possibly do and what that looks like, then how are you going to know?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you expand a little bit more on the term non-bank lender? Because it's something that for us in the industry, we say it every single day.
Yeah.
But can you sort of explain to the people that are listening, what does that mean?
To me, simply, it's just not a mainstream sort of traditional bank. So it's not like your NAB or your Commonwealth Bank or your St George's. It's a bank or a non-bank that will potentially lend you a little bit more, be a bit more flexible with servicing, treat your income differently if you're a self-employed person, or if you're just starting out a business, what does that look like and how can I borrow money? So yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the key thing there is because they're a non-bank, so by definition they are not a bank, they are not as heavily regulated as by APRA, which means that they can be a little bit more flexible with things like borrowing capacity. So just to go back to the original question of, those that build large property portfolios, there is no doubt that anyone with 5 or more properties in their property portfolio are dealing with a non-bank. By the time you get to that level, you need to have the ability to use them. Yeah.
Yes, but you have to feel comfortable with that as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about understanding that in that phase of building the portfolio, there is the possibility and eventuality that you are going to have to go to a non-bank, but it's also not forever either.
Yeah.
So you're if you're building that portfolio and say you have to go to a non-bank lender, it's not a bad thing. It allows you to then build a portfolio of, say, 4, 5, 10 plus properties. And then once you get to the point where, after speaking to a really good buyer's agent and having a meeting with your accountant or financial planner or whatever it is you have, that you say, okay, I'm happy with my level of my portfolio where it stands. So then it's talking to a mortgage broker again and saying, okay, well, how can I then, I've managed my portfolio, I've got my properties now. How can I now consolidate this debt and get it down so that I can get to that goal of retirement, which is pretty much what everyone talks about. So that's when we can come in and say, okay, well, why don't we try and refinance some of these to a traditional lender, like a mainstream lender, change some of the loan structure so that you're paying the debt down quicker.
Yep.
And that's all about that sort of phase.
Yeah. And that's where real strategy comes in, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think sometimes it can kind of be a bit of a box ticking. I just want to buy another property.
Yeah.
But you've really got to sort of have that medium to long-term view to say,
Definitely.
how do I eventually retire this debt out as well?
And I don't think anyone who has a full-time job, a family potentially, has the capability, the time, or the knowledge to be able to do that. And that's why I think, yes, it costs money, but everything costs money. Yeah. But that's why I think going to a buyer's agent and speaking to someone, a really good buyer's agent, who can kind of give you that strategy to say, okay, what is your ultimate goal? And let's then work towards that goal.
Reverse engineer it.
Exactly. And not everyone's the same. Like, you'll have the clients who, I want 10 plus properties, or I want 5 properties that I want to be able to subdivide or build a granny flat or do all these other things. Or I want to buy some to then sell and then pay off my owner-occupied debt, or buy an owner-occupied property with cash. Yeah. How do I get to that? Yeah. And that's where a buyer's agent comes into play, and a very good mortgage broker.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I might take a bit of a personal twist now. Mm-hmm. Sadly, family breakups is something that does occur in the modern day, and something that we often sort of see is post the family breakup is how does sort of someone get back into the property market. Can you speak to us a little bit about your journey, what that looked like, and how you sort of tackled it?
Yes, so I am the product of a divorce. I have 2 kids. So getting back into the property market was never going to be easy. But with the guidance and experience that I've had, I was able to get back into the investment space. Very simply, I used a buyer's agent. I had a deposit. I was lucky that I was able to come away from my divorce with some money.
Yep.
And I wanted to do something really well with that money. I didn't want to waste it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to eventually, potentially, get back into the market in terms of buying my own place for my kids. Or if I couldn't do that, then buying an investment property. My big thing in my head was buy one for each of them, and then maybe another one for myself, and then sort of work with my financial planner and buyer's agent about how then I structured when they would get that, if they would get that later on down the track. But yeah, it was about just working with the buyer's agent and obviously yourself and Fabio to help me do that. And I managed to get into the market and buy an investment property in Queensland.
Yep.
And
When was that?
Look,
When was that?
2 years ago,
Okay.
actually.
So from a timing perspective, done incredibly well?
Amazingly well.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to sell that property, and I made the decision to sell it because it was, and that was again with the help of the buyer's agent that I've got, was if I keep this, then I'm going to have to invest some more money into it because it was getting older.
Sure.
Or do I sell it and retain the profit and look at maybe buying another investment property, or trying to find something to live in?
Yeah.
So I decided to sell, and it was excellent, really quick process. The market's really hot, still is really hot in Queensland. So it was really, really good. But then so the ultimate goal was to buy something to live in. But as everyone probably knows or understands, the property market in Sydney is very hard to get into, especially when you've got one income, 2 children. So it was just hard, and I realised that, okay, I need to have a bigger deposit. So what do I do? So it's just, I've decided to do the whole, I'm going to still rent because I where I live now is really convenient towards the kids and work. So I'll rent invest. I'll just keep building a portfolio until I get to the point potentially where I can buy my dream home, where I can live in.
And I think the key or things that I picked up there is with your initial investment, you've seen it as it is an investment, right? You're not emotionally tied to it. You went in there, you got a return. You've now said, okay, I'm going to liquidate that and I'm going to roll it into another investment opportunity that I think will get me another return.
Yes.
And get me one step closer to where I want to be, which is ultimately the owner-occupied property in Sydney.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
But to what you were saying before, I don't think I even looked at the photos when the buyer's agent sent them through, because it was in my head, this is such a business decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't I'm going to live in this place and love it. It was more, okay, well, what's the rental return? How much do I have to put in? What does that monthly repayment look like, and what are the costs?
Yeah.
Can I afford it?
Yeah.
With everything else that's going on?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yes, I can. So it didn't matter really what it looked like.
Yeah, totally. And I think that is the best way to approach what is purely an investment. Ultimately, it's a spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, sometimes we see clients, they try to find properties that, I might visit there on the weekend. I'd love to retire there one day. And then you sort of end up finding a property that they've tried to make it meet every need, and it ends up meeting no needs at all.
Because it's not a business decision then, it's just a personal decision.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense financially.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking for something to live in, obviously, you're going to have your tick boxes and all that stuff. But this is purely investment. And if you are putting your money in, I don't know, crypto or shares, if you don't care, like you're just putting it in to then park it to forget about it. And for me, I did not want to deal with that investment property. It was, I buy it, I get my return. Yeah, okay, there's stuff that needs to be managed throughout. That's why you have a good property manager. But essentially at the end of the day, I bought it as an investment, and that investment was to grow and then decide on what I'd do to it later on down the track, which in this case I sold and made some money on it.
Yeah. And now what's with the analysis that you've sort of looked at, you've got a deposit ready. What's your next move? So you said you're going to go for another investment. What does that look like for yourself?
So that's, I actually have a strategy session with my buyer's agent, but we've sort of talked initially, and it's looking at something that potentially I can buy to subdivide.
Okay.
Because eventually I don't want to keep it. It's a 5-year plan.
Yep.
And hopefully then I can then sell those 2 blocks for a profit, and then I can buy my beautiful dream home.
Yeah. And I think something that I'm taking away there is the idea of capital growth is the key.
Massively.
Right? Because it's the capital growth that's going to be able to get you to the owner-occupied property that you're looking for. During the interim, if the cash flows, you've got to tip in a little bit, that's okay.
Yep.
As long as it's manageable, you know, you've got buffers in place.
Yeah, but also I think you have to have that goal in mind as well, because it will get hard. Because what if rates go up? Mm-hmm. What if, I don't know, kids need braces, which more than likely they will. But there will always be something. So it's about going, okay, yes, everything's a risk. And if you buy an investment property or do anything, it's a risk. And it could be hard financially for 6 months, 12 months. But if you have a goal or you have a plan or that strategy that you've put in place, then you've got something to work towards. And it's so much easier to get through that hard phase or get through that, I've really just got to push through the pain of not being able to do X, Y, Z, because I know that this is going to get me into my forever home, or it's going to build my portfolio, or whatever your dream is or whatever your goal is.
Yeah. So I think at the core of it is you've got to have that why, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. That keeps you on the straight and narrow.
But I think it's also good to speak to someone about what is the why?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how to get to the why, and then build that why.
Yeah. And it will make the journey worth it, as hard as it may be.
Yes. Because it's been hard. Yeah. Like it was all through COVID that I did all that, and buying the investment property and not seeing it and doing on my own. Because that was the other thing. It's going from being in a couple and having 2 incomes to then being on your own with 2 kids, and you have no one to bounce that off. It's all on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So it's a really, it's a full-on decision. And for me, it was very hard. But again, I fell back on the expertise of this company, but also the buyer's agent and a really good financial planner that I've got as well, because I don't think I could have made that decision on my own.
Yeah. And I think, again, there's so many reasons to have not done it a few years ago.
Yes.
And if you didn't do it and you procrastinated, you wouldn't be in the position that you're in now.
No. To what I bought for, to what I sold for.
It's incredible, right?
Just phenomenal.
You couldn't save your way to that.
No,
right?
never. Even because I've got a little bit in shares, a little bit, admittedly, but if you look at the comparison between the two, the property investment was so much better.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Kylie, thank you so much for the chat.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. For those who want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Simplify Finance. Just head to the website. I'm there.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.